Okay, now sounds like somebody else just dinged in. Oh, that may have been an email. Okay, so now I got my smart board fixed. So when I touch it, it does things. I'm trying to get used to that. My phone also was turned on. My phone has not worked in here since before school started. So if your parent has been trying to call my extension, it couldn't get through. And I had a few parents that sent me an email and I said, I'm sorry, it's not working. So let me get into this. We are going to talk about our moon. I think a lot of you actually know the first part of this question. What causes the tides on Earth? What is the major thing that causes the tides on Earth? There's actually two.
That big thing the government put.
That big thing that the government put in the sky. Okay, that big thing is the moon, and the government did not put the moon in the sky.
Are we allowed to retake the quiz?
You have two total chances, and that is it. It will pick the highest of the two. They still have a cutoff. Now, the major thing, whoops, like I said, I am not used to the smart board being sensitive. The moon is the primary thing that controls the tides. It's its gravitational pull. There is something else up there that affects the tides on Earth. What's the other thing that affects the tides here besides the moon?
Wind.
No. It's not Mars.
The sun.
It's our sun.
Oh.
You are right.
Goated.
Now, we talked about these two words before. Perigee, the G's are the moons to their planets. Perigee is where a moon is closer, and apogee is where a moon is further. Do you think that those affect the tides?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
they don't. It has to do with, are you a full moon or a new moon, where it would be the sun? My body could either be the Earth, and this could be the moon, or this could be the sun, this could be the Earth. Either Earth and moon or moon and Earth. If they're in a straight line in new and full moons, the tides are higher and lower. If, however, if that's the sun, my body's the Earth, and that's the moon, these poles are fighting each other. And yes, you still have high tides and low tides, whether it be first quarter or third quarter, which would be behind me. I'm looking at it from the side. You still have highs and lows, they're just not as intense. What perigee does makes the moon look bigger. And what apogee does is makes the moon look smaller, but they don't actually affect the tides. So our moon, ET, is short for extraterrestrial. It is the only other than Earth land mass. That's what extraterrestrial means. That we have physically walked on. Do you know how many people have walked on the moon? We've all been men. How many people have walked? 12. It is 12. Who were the first two?
Neil
Armstrong, you guys. Buzz Aldrin.
And not Michael.
No. My dad actually had the chance to meet Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong passed away a couple years ago. And they took him up in their helicopters up and up to where Bryce Canyon National Park is. They have these huge mega structures, and you can only get on top of them if you fly up there.
Is that meteorite the biggest one?
No. No.
Dude, it's in your notes.
It is. That's not good. We talked about it yesterday.
I don't remember.
Go back and look at the YouTube like that.
What is your YouTube channel?
All you have to do is click on the thing.
What thing?
There's a link. I just showed you on Canvas. There's a link.
Dude, we've been doing this every
I do it the same way. This is like rinse and repeat
It's like
every single day.
clockwork in this place.
I've never gone to your YouTube channel.
You don't have to go to my channel. You click on the link. It's embedded in the. All right. Anyways, Mars is the only other planet that we've put mobile craft on, rovers. The first Martian rover that we tried to land, they did the measurements. They did like the mathematics in metric, and then they did all the measurements in English, or it was the other way around. And I remember this. I was in high school. Instead of the chute opening and it gently going down to the surface of Mars, it plowed into it and smushed itself into a billion bits. That was the first attempt. We have had 3 rovers on Mars. One of them, it got real dusty on its solar panels, and it went into like sleep for a while until a windstorm came through and cleaned off. One of them sings happy birthday to itself every year. We will eventually put people there. It is probably y'all's generation. We haven't done it yet. Yet. Hey, maybe in 30 years. Not yet. Titan, we talked about Titan before. It's the big moon of Saturn. The Huygens was attached to the belly of Cassini. It disengaged. Cassini slammed into Saturn, did its swan song. And then this little probe went into Titan's atmosphere, took back this absolutely beautiful visual footage, took a bunch of atmospheric data, went over that orange ridge, and then landed in the basin on the other side, came down gently. See a little poof of dust as it lands on the surface of Titan. Parachute goes forward. It lasted a little bit, and then it froze to death. But it wasn't mobile. It just plopped itself down and took data until it died. Somebody in second period said, I think we put one on Venus. Not the United States, not NASA. USSR, Soviet Russia, was actually the first country to successfully put a satellite down on the surface of a planet. Versions 4, 5, and 6 all were disintegrated by the pressure of the atmosphere. It took them 4 tries to actually get this thing to land before it basically was crushed and it was incinerated. About 35 minutes worth of data. But the Russians actually did it first. Russians were the first person to put a man in space too. Why not?
We put a dog in space.
All different kinds of stuff was put into space. Yeah, that dog was like irradiated too. And so were the monkeys, the chimps.
They all got killed.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did testing on. I mean, I'm not saying it's cool just to go torture animals. They didn't want to send a person up and have it happen to them. And things were done a little bit differently back in the 60s, y'all.
Well, why would they send a human if they don't even know what's going to happen?
Well, then that's why they sent different animals up into space before to figure out were they going to survive before they sent the first people up. All right, the moon is larger than Pluto. Remember, poor Pluto was demoted. It is the 5th largest natural satellite in our solar system. The largest are 4 of the 5 are, no, 3 of the 5 are Jovian. Ganymede, Callisto, and Io is actually number 4. Titan, the big one of Saturn, it makes the list too. Are you going to need to know all of them? No. The moon is the 5th largest natural satellite, which means a moon, in our system. It is Luna. We've been talking about the name of the moon for a long time. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here, Earth's gravitational pull is 9.81 meters per second squared. If I take my mass and convert it into weight, I'm like 620 newtons, give or take. If I just teleported myself to the moon, I would only weigh 100 newtons. I am a 1/6 of the weight on the moon as I am on Earth. Did I change mass? No. The gravity's less. Now, if you've seen the footage of the astronauts when they're sort of like jump walking because they like bound, that's because the gravitational pull is a lot less. It is very similar to trying to walk in water as far as it's supporting your weight so that you feel less heavy. No, it was not fabricated in a Hollywood studio. Yes, we really sent people to the moon. They brought back rocks. They brought back samples. In fact, the moon is the only body that we have a physical sample that's been brought back to Earth.
Okay, but the government has lied about stuff before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they still do it.
Oh my gosh.
How is there different gravities?
Because it's a smaller body, and the smaller body has a less gravitational pull.
But if there's like one formula for gravity, how can
I mean, look. The force due to gravity. The force due to gravity is the gravitational constant times the mass of the first object times the mass of the second object divided by the distance between them squared. So, what did you just ask me? Anyways, if the mass is less, then this gravitational pull, which is the force due to gravity, is less. If the mass becomes larger, then the force due to gravity from it, like Jupiter, has an insane gravitational pull because it's so much bigger in kilograms. I'd have to look at my cheat sheet to tell you how many kilos it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. How far apart the objects are, it reduces their pull by the square of how far apart they are. So if you take two objects, now they're twice as far apart, the gravitational pull between them is now 1/2 squares, which is a quarter of the original pull that they were. This is early Newton, not quite even calculus. It's really not that hard.
They never taught us that.
You should learn that in physics.
They
If
taught
you
us, like,
take
something
physics.
like 0.9. Something with that 9 for gravity.
That is how we discovered that the gravitational pull on this planet was 9.81 meters per second squared. We know the size of the Earth, we know the size of the sun, we know how far apart we are, and we know the gravitational constant, which is constant throughout the entire universe, or so we think, because we haven't been able to test that. And using this formula, this is how Isaac Newton went, aha, gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared. While he was chilling out in his aunt's apple orchard, not wanting to catch the plane.
So how did you decide that that formula was right?
It was based off their Kepler's laws of planetary motion, which is very, very, very similar to that, but we're not going to go there. That formula is really not that hard. You just haven't used it. All right, so rotation is the spin of the object. Rotation is the day. Going around, in this case, the moon going around the Earth is its year. The day spin is the same length as the trip around the Earth, which is the year for the moon. When that happens, the moon is tidally locked, which means the same side of the moon is constantly facing our planet. People say they see a face of a man in the moon. I really don't. There is no such thing as the dark side of the moon. That is a Pink Floyd album, but there is a far side or a back side of the moon. The near side is the side that we see. When our side is a full moon and it's totally lit, the other side that we can't see is a new moon and it's totally dark. When we have a new moon, then the far side is a full moon. If we have a half moon like this half is lit, then this half is dark. I actually embedded how the phases of the moon are into your Google Doc so that you don't have to write out a bunch of vocabulary, or this would take like twice as long to do. Anybody still need this one? Yes.
No.
Now, you guys will have your notebooks checked. It'll probably be at the earliest, not this week, at the earliest next Friday. At the latest, I can start checking them the Monday of the end of the 6 weeks. And it is a test grade. Yeah, you should have created like a first 6 weeks under ESS and dump them in there so that when you send me a link to it, that it's not just everywhere. That's what I showed you how to do it, like the first week of
So
school.
why does it matter if we are?
Because I have to check it. And if you just have everything as an open file, I'm not going to look at it.
If I don't have any of my notes,
That is not good.
I'm gonna fail.
It's a test grade.
Bro, I've been telling you this. Like, every
Like-
single day I tell you. I don't even know how to do that.
I showed you.
It didn't make any
My
sense.
Chromebook is full. It doesn't add anymore.
What?
My Chromebook won't take any more documents.
It was supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be in a Google Drive.
It still has all the stuff from last week.
Get rid of it.
I don't know how.
Delete it.
I don't know how.
How do you not know how to delete a file?
It won't let me delete the Google Docs.
It doesn't let you delete that stuff because they have everything blocked.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
You just let it slide more.
No. All right. So the surface of the moon, you have areas that are much lighter, which are higher. They are closer to the sun, therefore they reflect more light. The sun does not produce light. It reflects the light from the sun. It's a giant reflector. The darker areas are the lower areas, sort of like valleys and rifts. The Greek called them mares, M-A-R-E, plural is Maria, not Mario, Mario, which translates to sea. Okay, they don't have water in them, but there are 13 areas that are either a sea, most of them are seas. The biggest one is called an ocean, and they have names. And that's where we like to land our astronauts because they're nice and smooth. Otherwise, you land on the side of a crater and down tumbles your craft and you can't get back off the moon.
I'm surprised like they demonstrated something.
Well, they do a lot of data collection before they send those people up there. They're not just to be like, hey, go pick a spot that looks nice.
Like they get up there and like there's fly oxygen.
Well,
We're out of gas.
that would not be good because if you run out of fuel and you're on the moon, then how are you going to get back?
Swim. Yeah,
Swim.
Swim.
Swim through space. Okay. Just hold your breath.
Yeah. Oh, you have your suit, but you're just doing like a jetpack.
Yeah.
And how are you going to survive re-entry into Earth?
No,
You just orbit and you wait for them to pick you up.
Yeah, you fly to the International Space Station.
You're not going to have anywhere near enough oxygen to do that.
That's why you get a rebreather. You get fuel.
You get a plant in a bottle. You just attach it to your back.
Get a plant in a bottle and attach it to, okay.
Yeah.
And you breathe for it and it breathes for you.
Exactly.
All right.
I call that line.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the 12 main seas, most of them have names except for like the last one, which I guess was the last one that the Greeks figured out. So the seas where we like to land people, they're called Serenity, Tranquility, Crisis, Fertility, Nectar, Vapor, Cloud, Moisture, Island, Rain, Cold, and then there's one that's called the sea that has become known. The one big ocean is called the Ocean of Storms. Now, I am not going to give you a picture of the moon with like an arrow and say, which sea is this? Which sea is this? What sea is this? But this is what they are called. And yes, they add these neat Greek names. And no, I didn't put the Greek up here. I put what it translates into. And the order that I gave them, if you look at the top, and I have a picture, if you look at the top of the moon, it goes around clockwise. Like I said, I'm not going to ask you to identify these locations, but just for reference, this is what they are called. So if you're listening to some type of NASA thing and they're talking about landing the people in the Sea of Tranquility, you know what the heck they're talking about. No, there is no water on the moon. There's ice, but there is not liquid water. So this is the moon. It's not quite as good as some of the images that I have in my Night Watch book. And I'm trying to find where all the lists of the craters were because I don't have it bookmarked. Yeah, some of you have a lot of stuff that, like, what? They're a test grade? Start
Wait, I
working
have a
on it.
question. How much is the test grade worth?
30% total of your, okay, so here's the other thing. If you did not realize that the way that you guys have your grades calculated changed drastically from last year. Daily used to be like, what, 30%? Now it's 60%.
Okay.
That's why a lot of people are not passing right now, because those daily grades are weighted a lot heavier. Your test grade, not the assessment, your test grades, like the safety test, your notebook grade, the one that we're gonna have on Monday coming up, those are 30%, and the assessment is 10.
How much did they used to be?
I think it used to be 30 daily, 60 test, and 10 assessment. I think they flip-flopped. I wasn't here last year, so I don't know for sure.
So if I get all my stuff done daily and I the test is a 50, I'll be all right.
It depends on what your other grades are. That's too much of an open question for me to answer.
They just did that.
So-
I feel like it's too big to worry about little things like that.
So this is our moon. Okay, like I said, some people say they see a face of a man in the moon. I don't.
It's right there.
But like this light spot is a ridge. It's a high spot. These darker areas, those are the seas. Then the big one over here is the Ocean of Storms.
So how low down is it?
The difference in elevation between them, I'd have to look it up.
Like if we go, like we land there, we able to come in. It's like the great.
Yeah, you just have to have enough velocity to escape the terminal or the escape velocity of the moon, which I also have that written down somewhere. I don't keep that stuff memorized. My brain doesn't work that way.
So it's not like the Grand Canyon where it's like
No, but the rifts on Mars are like that. This is named after Tycho Brahe. This is the big crater that you can see. They name it like this one was named after Copernicus. They have one that was named after Galileo. This doesn't show all. There's a crater that is named Hell. They have all different names.
Whoa, you just say that word.
That's what it's named. I'm not using it as a derogatory form. Oh, it's what it's called. The moon, that's what my father used to say. H-E double hockey sticks. That's exactly what he used to say when we were kids. He used to also say sugar honey iced tea. He did. When we were little. We were like little. Sugar honey iced tea is what he used to say. So Earth, okay, I just made it go forward. I didn't mean to. The moon is quite a ways away from us. Every now and then you hear that there's an asteroid that's going to do a flyby. Well, it's way past the moon. It is still considered a near Earth object, but we don't get struck by the big ones very often. I better knock on wood. Watch, there's one coming towards us right now. Now, you do need to know the terms between waxing and waning. Now, my planetarium director in middle school was the one that actually had this make sense in my brain. You probably have never made a candle from scratch. Okay, but if you make a candle from scratch, get a hold of the wick, some part you set on fire, and you dip it in the hot wax. And then you pull it out, and you wait. And then you dip it back in the wax, and you do that however many times. And what happens every time you dip it in the wax? It gets bigger. Okay, so
Candle gets bigger.
that's exactly right. So waxing, so I'm going to make the moon go like this around me. Okay, so on the Earth, and then the sun's over there. So this way is a full moon because the sun is illuminating the backside. Okay, so this is black. This is a full moon. As I move over here, I start to gain light. That is a waxing crescent. And then when I hit here, well, halfway, quarter of the way, this is first quarter. This is a half moon. Now it's still going to be becoming fuller. As it becomes more fuller, it's still a waxing, but it's a gibbous. Here, all of the light is not during a lunar eclipse, but this way, the entire front is filled, which is a full moon. Now I'm going to start losing light. This is a waning, which means to be smaller, gibbous. This is a third quarter or a late quarter. This is still getting smaller. It's a crescent. It is a waning crescent back to a full moon. You guys actually have that as a picture. So you don't have to write out all the definitions. This is what I'm talking about. So instead of going this way, I went this way. So we see the dark side towards us when the sun is over here. So full moon starts gaining light, waxing crescent, half illuminated, first quarter, still getting bigger, waxing gibbous, completely illuminated full moon, starting to lose light, waning gibbous, third or last quarter, waning crescent, back to a new moon. And it recycles every 28 days. This keeps you from writing every single phase definition. It's here as a picture. Now eclipses. A lunar eclipse. Sun is shining every way, coming this way towards us. The moon is up. This happens at night. And the earth starts to cross into the path of how the full moon is being illuminated. You ever watched an eclipse and you see the sun turn blood red?
Yes.
That is a blood moon. Do you know why that happens? There's not rust on the moon. Okay, so
because of the way that
as the earth is starting to move into the path of the moon, before the eclipse starts, its shadow is actually projected ahead of the part that blocks the light totally that causes the eclipse. That is called the penumbra. It's like the pre-shadow of the earth. That's what makes it start to turn red. This normally happens around midnight, sometimes a little earlier. Then as the earth keeps going, it starts to totally block, and that's what creates the eclipse. Sometimes it's a partial solar, sometimes it's a total solar. And then as it starts to leave and re-allow the light to come in, it's still in the penumbra, still red. And then once it's totally gone, it's out of the way, then the moon re-illuminates and it turns back to its regular color. The forecasted shadow is the penumbra. The actual thing that causes the eclipse is called the umbra. It's not rust. It's not permanent. And the lunar eclipses are always during a full moon. Always. When I still ran the astronomy program at my previous school, we went and saw the solar eclipse that was like January 19th of 2017. No, 2019. And they didn't want to wait until 11 o'clock to watch it be red. And I said, fine, if you're going to stay up, you can watch it from home. They thought that the red color started as soon as the sun went down. Nope. It takes time. You have to have this part of that pre-shadow, if you will, start going across the moon. I know. I think there's a ghost.
The school's haunted.
The school's haunted. My previous school had ghosts.
At least this part.
The attendance just popped up. Hold on here.
You can't show us that that's illegal.
No, it's the grades.
Wait. I'm making a piece. No. I didn't even know we were supposed to be doing those.
Yeah, that's why she's.
That's why they've been provided, and I've had paper copies and digital copies for you.
Well, I thought that was like a one-time.
No.
That's not every single day.
Where can I find the answers from them?
I upload my YouTube.
Oh, yeah. All right. I'm going to get this done.
Hey, where did you get those done? Send me.
So I can have like.
All right,
3 weeks
lunar
worth of posts.
eclipses. No, lunar eclipses are full moons. Already the other type of eclipse, the solar eclipse, still involves the moon, but in this case, the moon passes between us. Now the moon is a lot smaller, so unless you're in the exact right place at the exact right time, you don't get to see totality. The one that happened when y'all were like freshmen,
Oh, you know what's
okay? What?
cool about that? Is, my dad was just getting a camping, like we were going to tell you the campsite and one of the spots that was
Yes.
like that. It was 250
Yes.
for one night.
Yes.
That campsite was usually like 50.
Yes, and that would have been up towards like Kansas or Nebraska, towards the middle. Yes, and I'm going to show you why that's where people were going. So don't stare at the sun, first of all, but really don't stare at a solar eclipse. Okay, if you did watch the eclipse, even from here, which was partial,
I stared at
it gets really bright. You can blind yourself very easy if you stare at a solar eclipse. You get special solar glasses. No, wearing like 5 different sunglasses will not cut it, y'all. They have to be special filters. They're not that expensive.
What about welding?
I'd have to look, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. That's what he was just asking. I think that will work, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look into it.
I just looked at it. It didn't like burn my eyes. or anything.
So, hold on. If a lunar eclipse is a full moon, then a solar eclipse is going to be a
New moon.
new moon. Exactly correct.
Oh.
Now,
How long you did you know it's gonna be?
if you are in this area on this date, we are going to have a total solar eclipse here.
No way.
Okay, now you have, knowing my luck, it's going to rain. Okay, but like he said, people were finding places to go to hotels and whatnot across the middle of the United States. And yes, it was expensive, and no, you couldn't find any because you don't get a chance to see a total solar eclipse very often. Now, you do not have this. This was the one where you tried to find it. This was where it went, right here. Okay, now the red is the actual very center, but as long as you're within that yellow band, you get a total eclipse. So people were picking up hotels and campsites all along there back on August the 17th. Yes. That's a dang good question. I'll have to look.
They're not in the box.
They weren't slid like up underneath the. Okay, because they were all brought here. I didn't do anything with them. I thought they all had slips in them. Okay. Okay. Anyways, so this is the one on April 8th. This is it right here. And guess where we are? Right dab in the middle.
Hazel, Texas.
But like, you know, and I know the United States is not this big on the planet. I'm not dumb. This is just the picture that shows the paths of total eclipses. So this is August 12th, 2045. This one's 2099. This one's 2078. This one's 2052. This is 2079. They have these maps that go way into the future for the different areas of the world. And yes, I know the United States is not as big as our planet.
That'd be pretty cool though, like if we were just the only country. I mean, we kind of are. That wouldn't matter. Yeah.
All right, so tides, y'all, tides. The moon's gravitational pull is the biggest thing that affects the tides, but so does the sun. It's just not as strong because it is much further away than the moon is from us. So even though it's bigger, the distance is actually more important in calculating gravitational pull than masses, especially if one of the bodies is the same. You have a high and a low tide. They're not perfectly 12 hours apart because the moon comes up, it's got like a 50-minute shift every day. The moon goes around once every 28 days. So the tides are affected a little bit different. If you're a fisherman and you go out into the ocean, you look it up, it tells you the high and low tides. Why am I still hearing music going on? Where is it coming from? When you are new and full, if my body is the earth and this is the sun, and then you have a moon here, you also have this image. Or if this is the sun and I am, if it's sun, earth, moon, or if it's sun, moon, earth, it's either a new or a full moon. And because they stack with each other, the tides are even higher or even lower. If it's the sun, the earth, and either a first or a third quarter, they're tugging in opposite directions. And yes, you still have high and low tides, but they're not as big. They are called spring tides and neap tides. And you probably have not heard of those phrases before. You are going to need to know them for your test.
Spring and neap tides?
Spring and neap.
Like fourth grade.
Wait,
I would be surprised if you learned that in fourth grade.
We did. They made us learn about it in fourth grade, and it was stupid.
I don't think that you just like be able to process stuff like that in fourth grade.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not saying that you were dumb, but I mean, you're just not like intellectually
I know,
developed enough.
No, it's okay. But I don't know why they thought we were supposed to read it in fourth grade.
You have this picture. If the moon is on this side, it's a new moon. If it's on this side, it's a full in relationship to the sun. The light blue is the bigger one. Okay, the light blue is the moon. And then the darker blue is the sun. They stack here. So higher tides and lower tides. Here, they're fighting in different directions. You still have high and lows. They're just not as high or low as a spring tide. Spring tide stack, neap, neap. That's how you spell that. They're still there. They're just not as high. Now, I don't know if any of you remember Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy that hit like New York and New Jersey like 5 years ago. That happened during a spring tide. So the tide was already as high as it could be, but here comes that storm, which really wasn't that powerful. It just coincided with a spring high tide, which is why it was so damaging. My family lost their beach house on Long Beach Island, Surf City, Long Beach Island, New Jersey. The house had been there since the 50s, and it was destroyed. Had to be demolished. And then they put this big, ugly house on piers in its place. Such a cute little old house. This is what I just explained. Spring tides are much, much higher and lower, both high and low, than the corresponding neap, because they're either the gravitational pulls are working together, okay, or they're fighting each other for this one. Now, give me a second. Yes, if they're working together, which means they're in alignment, they're adding, they're amplifying, so you have higher and lower. But if they're perpendicular, they're interfering with each other.
So we're on a low tide, the other side of the world on high tide.
Essentially, yes. Now, I'm going to turn on the light. Hold on, I'm not quite through. But I have to address people online, and I have to address you guys, specifically because I've been getting so many emails. Let me go into my Meet. Okay, I don't see, I had myself blacked out the whole time, and I didn't mean to do that. You guys at least got to see the screen. I am going to stop recording.